Welcome back to the Word Podcast. I'm Julian Spivey, the creator, editor, and writer for The Word. I'm joined here tonight by my wife, Aprille Hanson-Spivey. We just got done watching the Season 3 finale episode titled Her of This Is Us. A little bit of background information before we get into the show. The episode Her was written by Isaac Aptaker and Elizabeth Berger, who serve as co-showrunners on This Is Us with creator Dan Fogelman. The episode was directed by Ken Olin, who's also an executive producer on the show, and many of you may know him as an actor. He was the lead in the 80s and early 90s NBC drama 30-something, which is kind of a precursor to This Is Us, and that is a family-oriented drama. Her was the 18th episode of Season 3 and the 54th overall. There was a lot that happened in the season finale. Let's get into some of it, Aprille. Let's start with the very end. And unfortunately, our DVR cut it off. NBC keeps running long with these episodes, so we actually had to look it up online as to what happens. We cut off right as Randall is entering this room at his brother Kevin's house, and what we missed is that, and there are going to be spoilers throughout this episode, so if you haven't watched this, just shut it off right now. What we missed was that it is an elderly Rebecca, the matriarch of the family, and she appears to be at the end of her life, maybe has Alzheimer's, maybe has dementia. We'll find that out lately. But he says her name twice, or says mom twice to her, and she kind of doesn't really recognize who he is. But another big reveal in this final scene that we had to read it online because the DVR unfortunately cut it off again. It reveals that Nicky, Jack's brother, is by her side. So apparently he comes back into the fold of the Pearson family. What do you have to say about that aspect of the finale?
Well, that's a very interesting reveal because I wonder, does that mean Miguel has died?
Yeah, we don't see Miguel at all in this final scene. So something's happening.
And I did kind of wonder about the relationship going forward with Nicky and Rebecca. I mean, obviously, she had such a strong connection with Jack, and that's not necessarily to say that she, at some point winds up with Nicky.
Oh, I hope not. That would be weird.
Yeah, I really don't think that would be the case. I hope not, at least. But I do think that I think it's encouraging that he's there. I really hoped that his character would appear in the future, and I think it would add just an interesting dynamic to the family to have him come back.
I don't think it's surprising to me that Nicky is there. I think a lot of people felt like his storyline was over.
Really?
That they just kind of wrote it off and they're never going to see him again, but that's just not the way the show works.
And I don't think that would be a good call either.
I did think that the reveal of Nicky actually being alive, surviving Vietnam around the mid-season point of this show was kind of strange. I thought that was a little too much, trying to pull on the motion strings like the show does so well, and just kind of like, really, y'all are going to go there? But Griffin Dunn certainly does a good performance as the older Nicky in the show, and it's a good addition acting wise to the show. And I want to see where it goes from here. But I was a little bit, stunned when they showed that he survived Vietnam mid-season. One of the big flash forwards from the season 2 finale last year was, are Randall and Beth still together? And it's something that the show over the last few episodes of season 3 was kind of getting toward. And it takes us until the final moments of the show to realize that, yes, they are still together. And I'm not too surprised by this, but I think you were, Aprille. Why did you think so?
Yeah, I just thought it would be, well, first of all, I'm thrilled that they're still together.
Yeah. It's a show built on great relationships, and I think that Randall and Beth is just as good as Jack and Rebecca
But I love the fact that they brought this human element to their relationship, because it almost became this fairy tale relationship, and that's just not what this show is necessarily. I mean, Jack is a very heroic figure, but we saw him struggle with alcoholism, and obviously his time in Vietnam was very traumatic, and cutting Nicky out of his life. So I mean, he definitely had layers, but it seemed up until this point that Beth and Randall were just very not fake, I wouldn't say fake, but just too good to be true. And that's why I actually really love those episodes, because it showed, the previous couple episodes leading up to the finale, the realness of their relationship.
A lot of times fans have an issue with that because they want to see these shows as fairy tales, but to really become a great show, you have to get down to the nitty gritty of what a relationship is, and relationships are not easy. And I think the show had to do this with this relationship, like they had to do it with Jack and Rebecca overcoming his alcoholism. But speaking of relationships, it appears two have ended. One definitely. Kevin and Zoe are no longer together because Kevin just couldn't get over the fact that he wanted children and Zoe didn't, so they finally split up. Now, we do see in the flash forward that Kevin eventually does have children, so I guess we'll see who he winds up with in the future.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that they would not get back together. I mean, the child in the future could have been an adopted child for them. I mean, who knows, really? But, I mean, yeah, the season finale did kind of wrap up with her leaving, of course. But, you know, the show has a lot of twists and turns, so.
I didn't really find the Rebecca on her deathbed to be that surprising. This show is a show that's going to go from beginning to end, so that's not surprising to me. What is kind of surprising, and the show's kind of hinted at it before, especially last year in the flash forward, it appears Toby and Kate are no longer married in the future. Their kid survives. Jack survives the kid, but it looks like they're no longer together. Now, the show doesn't outright explicitly say this, but in an interview with the New York Post, Chris Sullivan, who plays Toby on the show, says that yes, Toby and Kate are not married at this point in the future. So that's kind of an interesting. It just kind of shows that even in fairy tale Pearson land, not every relationship's going to make it. What do you think about this reveal?
That kind of makes me a little bit more devastated, just because they have gone through so much. It seems like, you know, just their relationship throughout the entire show so far, and it's only been 3 seasons, but I just don't, you know, their struggle to have a child to begin with, and then obviously the struggle they're going to have going forward.
And we saw, and they kind of brushed it off too much, I thought, in the season with Toby's depression. So that probably plays a role in it in the future.
I thought they absolutely brushed that off. I think that should have definitely gone on for another episode. It was very just odd. That was the one problem I did have with the season. They kind of addressed it in maybe an episode, and they kind of had him dealing with his depression off and on, you know, for a little bit, but they really just didn't get into it. And maybe they'll do it in the future, but I just didn't think they addressed it enough.
And something that may play into the future of them not being together, and Chrissy Metz does a great job as playing Kate, but it's kind of a flawed character in that she holds her father, played perfectly by Milo Ventimiglia in the series, to such a high pedestal and just perfection that nothing can ever reach that for her. So I wonder if that has something to do with it in the future.
But I truly believe that Toby is that person for her. I mean, if anyone is going to reach even... And I get what you're saying.
Which is why I don't think that anybody's ever going to be good enough for her if Toby's not good enough for her.
That's true. Exactly. I agree with that.
Is there anything that surprised you in the episode? Not necessarily even in the flash forwards at the end, which seems to be the show's way of doing things going forward with the last 2 season finales. Is there anything that surprised you in either those flash forwards or in the episode in general?
Actually, the most touching moment for me was actually the moment between Deja and Randall.
It was a great scene.
It was a beautiful scene. It was actually my favorite scene, I think, throughout the whole episode. And really, it kind of came full circle for her character. You know, we haven't really seen a whole lot from her in recent episodes, but it was just this beautiful moment of, you know, her telling Randall she has this debate competition, and so she needs to get there. You know, so he drives her, and obviously that's... there's no competition. So they, you know, wind up in front of one of her former foster homes, and, you know, she just talks about her experience there. And honestly, what I kind of thought going into that scene is that she was going to, like, confront one of her foster parents. Like, she was building up the courage to do that. And then she kind of turns it around and makes it to be this beautiful moment where she explains to Randall basically how lucky he is in his life. You know, how he was lucky to be adopted and how he's so lucky to have met Beth. And that was something I just didn't expect. And it was something beautiful. If you look at the transition and the episodes, you know, the beginning of the character of Deja to that moment, it was just absolutely beautiful.
It was certainly Lyric Ross, the actress who plays Deja's, finest moment in the third season. Altogether, they kind of didn't give her as much to do this season, which is one of my slight nitpicky things about season 3, because she was so great in season 2. Yeah, she talks about how nobody in this foster house ever won, but Randall, as she puts it, has won the lottery twice by being adopted into the Pearson family and then ending up with his wife Beth.
And really that, you know, they need to get it together and, you know, figure out their relationship. And to me, it's just this beautiful moment because Randall's character is all about these big speeches and big moments. And, you know, here's this teenager who is now giving him the lesson. It was really beautiful.
When he gets home and talks to Beth about it, he says that basically she Randalled him, which yes, that's what happened. But
it is.
I don't know if the show kind of needs to put it that way.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
Is there anything that you want to see from This Is Us going forward with the current storyline?
You know, with
all of the show in general.
Gosh. You know, I think it'll be very interesting to see Toby and Kate's as parents. You know, not only dealing, and I'm curious to see how their child is, because obviously, you know, he was born very premature, but also if he has any health conditions associated with that and how that affects their marriage going forward, because that can be very traumatic for new parents, not only to, you know, be figuring out how to be a parent, but also dealing, you know, potentially with a disability and, you know, we just don't know going forward. So that will definitely be interesting. I'd really like to see more from the Nikki character. Yeah. You know, I know that you weren't big on that reveal, but I thought that was such a cool...
It just seemed like too much of a coincidental, we're doing this for the shock reveal for This Is Us. And I know this is what This Is Us does, but everything else that they've done, the reveal in the pilot where it's the multiple timelines of the same family, the reveal that Jack dies in the first season and how he dies in the second season, these all feel like things that are believable. Nicky faking his death in Vietnam and then not telling his family and then eventually doing it, but it just doesn't, it seems like it's more unnatural for me, which is why I kind of had an issue with it.
Well, I think it's such a neat dynamic to have, you know, someone from Jack's past who really Rebecca knows very little about and his children know very little about, to have a character to kind of introduce his family to a new version of Jack that they don't know. I think that'll be very interesting going forward.
I agree it's going to be interesting going forward now that we're at the point where it happens. Because, you know, you can't go back and change things. So now that they have made that decision, I am interested to see where it goes. I'm interested to see Griffin Dunn's guest appearances more and more often. It seems like we're going to get them. And how Nicky, it feels weird calling a grown man Nicky, but how Nicky is going to reacclimate himself into not only the Pearson family but society too, because he's basically an alcoholic hermit. Did you have wrap up the recap of the season finale and talk about some of the season as a whole? We've been doing that a little bit already. We talked about the Nicky thing, Randall and Beth's troubles with their marriage. Toby and Kate have been struggling all year to have a child. She has it early, but we see in the flash forward that the child does survive even if their marriage is not going to. At the very beginning of the season, we get the reveal of how Jack and Rebecca wound up together, which I thought was one of the best aspects. In fact, the season 3 premiere, which was called $9, was actually turned out to be my favorite episode of the entire season, and it shows how Jack and Rebecca kind of blossom early on in their relationship at a fair where he makes the most out of $9. So there was a lot that happened this year. $9 was my favorite episode, the premiere. Did you have a favorite episode? Was the finale your favorite episode, or was there something along the line?
I really appreciated, I'm not sure if it was my favorite episode, but I really did appreciate and I'm not quite sure what the episode was called, but the one where we, I believe it was the last episode or maybe the 2 episodes before the finale, the Beth and Randall relationship, just going back. I just really love the fact, and, again, you mentioned that some fans may not like the, turmoil, but I just found it to add another layer to their relationship.
Some people, and I don't know if the people who watch This Is Us are this way, but some people just watch television for escapism, and they don't want to see realistic things enter that, which fighting in a relationship is a realistic thing, and people may not want to watch that because they have to deal with that in real life. But I feel like if you're watching This Is Us, you kind of know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the joke seems to be that you better have a Kleenex box, ready before you watch This Is Us. And actually,
that is one of the complaints that some people have, is that it's too emotional. It pulls on your heartstrings too much. Occasionally it can do that, but it doesn't really bother me that much. I think it's one of the if not the best, one of the best shows currently on network television, drama-wise.
And actually, I also really liked the episode where we found out, kind of Beth's origin story. Mm-hmm. The background about her father, and, and that kind of, it made sense a little bit. It kind of connected her in a strange way with Kate. And just how, she idolized her father, Jack, and then, Beth idolized her father so much, who also died at an early age. And then we see, obviously, she found that connection with Randall because they both lost their parents at a young age. And I just thought, I really thought that episode was very beautiful as well, just to kind of see her background and give a little bit of a third dimension to her, because whereas Beth is honestly can spit off a one-liner or just be edgy and hilarious sometimes. Maybe hilarious isn't the right word, but she can give it to Randall just as,
I think this is the year, and I don't know if it's going to happen. The allure of This Is Us seems to be wearing off a little bit in, the television world in general in its 3rd season. But I think it's time that Susan Kelechi Wallace, who plays Beth, I think it's time for her to have an Emmy nomination. I really do. I said Wallace. It's Susan Kelechi Watson. My apology. And with the show, the first season of the show, Milo Ventimiglia, Sterling K. Brown, both were nominated for Emmys. Brown won the first network drama to have a winner in that category in many years. They were kind of the star actors. The second, along with Chrissy Metz, the second season kind of propped up Mandy Moore as Rebecca and Justin Hartley as Kevin. They really had the time to shine. I think season 3 was Susan Kelechi Watson's time to shine in this series, and she just made the absolute most of it. So really going to end the show with asking you what your favorite performance or what you thought the best performance of the season was, because I thought overall from start to finish it was her. Now the others have been great all the way, all along, but it seems like every year somebody is just enters the fray as, oh wow, it's their time to shine.
I agree with that. Anytime that Jack and Rebecca are on the screen together, it's absolute magic, and I love it. So I'm always going to love those scenes. But I do believe that she really, as you said, shined this season. And I think, Kevin's, just backing up a little bit, Kevin's drinking, that was brought up, especially at the end of the season, more so kind of that he was falling back into those moments. But that wasn't as interesting of a storyline this season compared with the other stories that, were being discussed. So I definitely think that Beth's character was just phenomenal.
All right. Well, we look forward to the 4th season of This Is Us. I'm sure it'll be premiering in the fall. That'll be it for us tonight. We hope that you've enjoyed this podcast, and just keep on watching This Is Us. It's really one of the best shows currently on network television.